And we had seen one example of industrial screen, how the industrial screens look like, and then we have also seen a video where you have seen the entire process from taking the ores out of the mines and then going to the sheaving process. The entire process you have seen, and also we had discussed some of the different types of industrial screens in brief and their operations. And then we had discussed something on sheaves and how the sheaves look like, a basic idea of the entire sheaving process, how we stack all the screens to separate the particle based on their sizes using different screens. Then we had discussed something on the difference between the sheaves and the industrial screen. And then we had seen some of the points on sheaves and some of the types of sheaves that is mostly used internationally and nationally. Some standard, the Indian standard and the American Taylor series was the most popular one. So that is what we discussed in the last class. Then I had defined the aperture, and the way the aperture was defined, it is the size of a square opening and the space between the individual wires, which is called the aperture size of a screen, and this is how it looks. So this is basically the aperture, as you can see. And then we had also defined the mesh number and how the mesh number was defined for an international standard screen and how the mesh number is defined for an Indian standard screen. So all these things we had discussed. Then standard screen interval, that is also we have seen the interval is, the area is twice that of the next screen. So the ratio is of the length is √2. And if you have an intermediate scale, then the aperture interval is 2 to the power 1/1. This is a special one, and this would be specified in the problem or in the system itself. So if it is, if nothing is specified, so then it's the interval is √2, not 2 to the power 1/4. The material which is used, and this is a typical Indian standard sheave table. So as you can see, if you go down from top to bottom, the sheave number will decrease for an Indian standard, whereas the case is reverse for international standard. Because this is because the way it is defined. So we had stopped here. So with this all this idea, we will try to solve one problem. But before solving one problem, let us get familiar with some other terms. So the first point written here is, I had already discussed that a set of standard screen is arranged serially in a stack with the smallest mesh at the bottom and the largest at the top. And we put all our materials, all the sample that we want to separate on the top of the top screen. The second point which I marked at bullet, this is something which you get familiar with the terminology, because with this terminology we would be using very frequently in the later classes, in the entire course itself. The material that passes through a specific screen is called minus material or undersize of the screen. So this term undersize is very frequently we will be using later on. So if I say that this is undersize of a specific screen, that means all the particle will pass through that screen. Okay, I'm talking about those materials only. If I say that this material is undersize of screen A, then all the material will pass through screen A. That is what you would understand if I say it's an undersize. And the material that is retained on the screen is called plus material or oversize. So if I say that the material that I have is oversize of screen A, then you would be in a position to understand that the whatever material I have, if I put all the materials on the top of screen A, it would be retained on the top of screen A. It will not pass through screen A. So that is the way this undersize and oversize defined. And the way we designate this undersize and oversize is by this term terminology: minus, then mesh number, then plus, then mesh number. So one example I have given that minus 42 plus 48. That means the particle will pass through 42 screen, a screen which has a mesh number 42, but it will be retained on a screen which has a mesh number of 48, or it can be designated like this also. Remember, this is in Taylor series, right? So the last point is the average size of particle in a specific fraction will be the arithmetic average of the aperture size of the screening probe. This is, I think, which had already discussed the average size, the way we had defined the average. It's di plus 1 divided by 2. The same thing which is written. Now let me ask you a question, see whether you understand this terminology or not. So if I write that okay, I'm giving you an example, and the material I'm talking about here, I say that the material is minus 10 plus 20, right? This is material A. Another material I have, material B, where I'm saying it's minus 20 plus 10. First of all, you tell me that if I use these two terms, these two terminology for specifying a fraction of material, are both the terminologies right or wrong?
So B1 is wrong.
B1 is wrong.
Don't jump into conclusion, just think once.
So B1 is according to the Indian series.
Absolutely right. So B1 is based on the Indian standard. The first one is based on the international standard. See, the numbers are reverse. Right, nothing else. This 10, 20 is what? These are mesh number. Right, this is what I told you. These are mesh number. So obviously the smallest mesh number will come first, then the biggest mesh number will follow. In case of Taylor series or international standard. But for the India standard, it would be reverse. So both are true. If I say that material A is from this and material B is from this, only the screens that is used to define these two materials are different. Second is standardized based on Indian standard, and first one is standardized based on international standard. Nothing else. So if you see the numbers reverse, don't get confused. It's the standard that is being used. Right, fine. Is it clear? Is the concept clear, or shall I have to say again?
Yes, sir, it is clear.
Okay. So it's clear.
Okay, fine. So with this concept, let us try to solve one problem, right? So the problem says the calculate the aperture. The definition of aperture, if you don't recall, let me reiterate it again. So it's the number of opening that you have in per linear inch, right? That is called the aperture. So what you have to do, you have to calculate the aperture in millimeter of an international standard. The standard is defined here, so this has nothing to do with the problem. Screen with wire diameter C, both are given in millimeter. The aperture you have to calculate in millimeter and the wire diameter is given in millimeter. The mesh number is given as D. So no number is specified, all are variable. So a D is defined as the number of opening per linear inch. That is the definition of aperture. So when I'm saying this is ISO 1944, so which standard screen I'm talking about here? Indian or international?
International.
Yes, the reason I focused on the ISO 1944 and ask you the question is to make you confused, nothing else. See the definition. The way that the aperture is defined, D is defined as the number of opening per linear inch. Right. So whatever be the ISO number or whatever be the standard number, we don't have to bother about it. It's the definition. The way it is defined, that is given here. And this is the international way of defining the mesh number. Right. Okay, so how will you proceed? And what is this wire diameter has to do here?
Sir, the thickness of the wire used for the mesh.
Yes, where it will come into picture?
Yes, sir, it will cover some area so that effective area changes of the mesh.
Okay. Now, based on whatever you are saying is absolutely right. So can you calculate calculate the aperture in millimeter?
Trying, sir.
If you want to know the relation between the inch and millimeter, I think it's around 25.4 something. 25.4 millimeter is 1 inch, I think. Just check it in Google. So how will we proceed? So let's see the screen closely, right? This is the way we define aperture. So this length is basically the aperture, the opening, length of opening of the square opening that we have in a screen. And this is what we have, the wear, the thickness of the wear, right? The screens are made of by the wears, by stacking the wears in a crisscross way. So this is the width of one individual wear, which is given as C millimeter, right? And what is the definition of mesh number? Mesh number D defines the number of opening per linear inch, right? So if we take 1 inch, yeah, 25.4 millimeter equal to 1 inch. So how we can calculate the number of opening that we have in 1 inch?
D
Length
into 25.4.
into or divided by, yeah, D in. So length of one opening would be what? Okay, the way we define the aperture is the length of one opening, right? This gap, this is what we defined as aperture, right? This length, the one that I'm marking here. So our objective is to express this aperture as a function of known parameters, that is D and C. So if we have D number of opening per linear inch, right, then the length of one opening would be 1 divided by D inch, and if I convert it to millimeter, that is 25.4 by D millimeter. Let's zoom it here, and this is what we have as 25.4 by D millimeter, because in 1 inch you have wears as well as opening also. So if I consider the entire thing, the individual block will contain half of wear on each side, half of wear on each side, half of wear in this side, and half of wear on that side, right? This is one opening that will come as 25.4 by D. Now how we can get the aperture from this 25.4 by D length? We have to take away this half of C from both sides. That is basically we have to take away C from the 25.4 by D. So what would be the aperture there? If I say the aperture is A, what would be A?
So 25.4 by D minus C.
Yes, 25.4 by D minus C, right? 25.4 by D minus twice into C by 2, that is C by 2 on both sides. So this is the relation between the mesh number as well as your aperture, but you need to know one information, right? This is C, that is the thickness of the wear you need to know, otherwise you cannot correlate these two. Now look, if you go back and see the table that I have shown you, see the I think the width of the wears they have specified somewhere. This is width of aperture. Okay, in most wear diameter, yes, this is the wear diameter. So they will always specify the wear diameter. So this is the reason why they specify the wear diameter. Unless and until you know the wear diameter, you won't be able to correlate the aperture with the mesh number directly. Otherwise, knowing mesh number, it seems like if you know the mesh number, you would be able to find out the aperture, but that is not true, because you need to know the wear diameter also. Fine. So with this information, let's solve another problem. So what this problem says, we have to find the average size of particle in millimeter retained on a 35 mesh screen. The standard of the mesh screen is given, international standard. Wire diameter of 35 mesh screen is given as 0.284 millimeter. So what we have to find? We have to find the mesh number of the previous screen, whose wire diameter is given as this. This is I expect you to, at least someone of you to solve. Those who have like at least some copy with in front of you, you can try it. It's a very easy one. The concept or the you can directly use the formula, this one which we had derived in the last problem. Relation between the aperture and the mesh number and the wire diameter. And for this problem, see the wire diameter for both the screens are given, and you have to find out the particle retained on a 35 mesh screen. All the relevant information you know. Let me pictorially show you the problem. So this is the two screens, right? So one screen aperture we need to find out, and one screen's mesh number we need to find out, another screen's mesh number we know. First, to find out the average particle retained on that specific screen. So let's take the bottom one as 35 mesh screen, right? So some particle is retained on this screen, and you have to find the diameter of this particle. And what you know the wire diameter as well as the mesh number of this screen.
0.308 mm.
I don't know, I have to see. But how you solve it? You just tell me the procedure. Or
So
you just
we
tell. Yes, go ahead.
find the aperture and
Yeah.
the diameter I had taken the previous one is screen.
How
Wire
you
diameter.
no, for first step is what? First you find out the aperture of 35 mesh screen. Or what?
So
No,
first
sir,
we find
previous-
out the aperture and then we add 0.417 and we get the we equate it to 25.4 divided by the new mesh number, and then we'll obtain the mesh number that is required, right?
But how will you find out the? No, I think the concept is not correct. So first, just go step by step. First, 35 mesh screen. What information you can extract from this 35 mesh screen? You know the wire diameter, right?
Aperture we can find from
Obviously,
here, sir. And sir, the previous screen aperture will be a by 2.
Will be?
Sir, will be half of the aperture of this screen.
Yeah, it will not be half. It will be √2 times of this one.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Area is double. If you go on the top, the area will be double. So the length will be √2 times of the aperture. Aperture is the length.
Okay.
It's not the area. Yeah, yes, absolutely. Your approach is correct. So if you find out the aperture, first you find out the aperture of the 35 mesh screen. Then knowing that information, and because it's an international standard screen and nothing is mentioned that there is no intermediate screen, so the previous aperture of the previous screen would be √2 times of this present screen. So that aperture which you find out, that is 35 mesh screen aperture multiplied by √2, you will get the aperture of the previous screen, right? So once you get the aperture of the previous screen, so what would be the mesh number? Again, the same formula you can use. Now you know the aperture. The wire diameter is also given as 0.417. So you can find out the mesh number. Right. So what mesh number you got? The previous one? Anyone? Anyone got the mesh number of this screen? Find out the aperture of this screen. Multiplied by √2, you will get the aperture of this screen. And once you know the aperture of this screen, the wire diameter of this screen is also given. You can find out the mesh number. Just tell me the mesh number. What you got? Anyone?
25.
25.
Yes, sir.
25. So by looking at this number, 25 may be correct, may not be correct, but we cannot say that it's absolutely wrong. If you get it as 45, then what can we conclude?
Sir, it would be wrong because
It would be absolutely wrong. So knowing, looking at the number, you can conclude that it has to be less than 35, right? So 25 can be correct and can be incorrect depending on the calculation, right? And so let's check what I got. Yeah, the aperture for the 35 mesh screen I found out to be 0.442 millimeter. Multiplied by √2, you got the aperture of the previous screen. The average particle size. The other question. How will you find out the average particle size? This is the first question. Find the average particle size retained on 35 mesh screen. The size of these particles.
sir, arithmetic mean of the aperture length.
Aperture of the previous screen.
Yes, arithmetic mean of 0.442 and 0.6250. Nothing else. The aperture of the screen and the previous screen. Right. So this is one answer, and the mesh number is exactly use the same formula. You know everything because you know the aperture now. Find out, yeah, it's 25. Right. Your answer was correct. Fine. It's a easy one. Like I hope it's clear. If you read the books, you might get confused. Like they don't write it in a proper way, so you might get confused. So for solving problem, you can use book, but for reading purpose, specifically these tricky parts, you might get confused. Yeah, is it the problem is clear? I hope, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Fine. So as I told you previously also, there is two different type of sheave analysis that we mostly do, right? One is known as differential analysis and one is known as cumulative analysis. What are these analyses? So given a mixture of particle, we want to get a distribution of the size that is involved in the mixture that we wanted to know. So there is two type of analysis that we do for knowing or for getting an idea of the particle size distribution in a mixture. The first one is differential analysis and the second one is cumulative analysis. So by the term itself, differential analysis, so something you can predict, like it's basically nothing, the result of a screen analysis which is tabulated to show the mass fraction of each screen increment as a function of mesh size range in the increment. What does that mean? The mass fraction of, that means you perform the sheaving experiment. Suppose you get a mass fraction means the weight of material that is retained on that specific grid divided by the total mass, that fraction. So if you have the mass fraction as xi on an ith screen, so this xi versus what is written, that mass fraction of each screen increment as a function of mesh size range in the increment. Mesh size range means the example that I gave you, minus 10, 20, this increment. So it will be tabulated like this. So you have minus 10 plus 20, that increment with xi. That means this is the mass fraction of the entire material which is retained on this specific range of screen. That means the screen is basically 20, the particle is retained on 20 screen, and it has came from a screen which has a mesh number of 10. That is one of the example. I'll show you one table as an example. So the example here given is 40-20. That means it has passed through 40 mesh screen and it is retained on a 20 mesh screen. This type of analysis is known as differential analysis. So sometimes instead of giving these two numbers, we also specify the average diameter, right? So instead of specifying two numbers, we can specify the average diameter also, because the wire diameter is also known. So you are in a position to find out the average particle size. retained on a specific screen. The last problem that we solved. So that is also sometime given. So this di with xi is also tabulated. This is one of the example of differential screen analysis. This one is pretty easy to understand. So you have the mesh number and you have the corresponding screen opening. The mass fraction retained on that specific screen. The average particle diameter is in that increment would be what? This is nothing but the arithmetic average of these two. Just take any example. Let's take this one. Let's take the first one. Okay, 0.037. How we get this number 0.037? Okay, if you might get confused with 0.0, let's take this one, 0.089. How you get this number? See, this is what you will get from the experiment. These three. And this is the differential analysis, DPI, that you are making. So how you will get this number?
Sir, those diameters that you mentioned earlier. Those
from the table itself, can you get this number?
Sir, 0.104 plus 0.74 by 2.
By 2, exactly. So these two numbers. The previous scheme. Okay. Yeah, see the previous screen and that specific screen. So when I'm talking about this screen, I'm talking about this specific screen, which has a mesh number 20. The average particle size that is retaining on that screen is what? That specific screen and the previous screen. The arithmetic average of the aperture of these two screens. And the arithmetic average would be what? 104 plus 0.074 divided by 2. So now can you tell me how you got this number?
Sir, finally, like we have like a surface with zero number of mesh. So
yeah, that is what is called pan. Pan has a solid base, so it doesn't have an opening.
Yes, sir. So we have 0.074.
Yeah, it's basically 0.074. You can think plus 0 by 2. So that is the solid base, so it doesn't have an opening. Right, and this is how we plot it. This will give you some idea of the distribution. So from there you will get an idea of how the particle size is distributed in a mixture. But what we in industry or in most of the particle handling cases, what we mostly want, like I am giving you a mixture of particle and I wanted to know the weight of, say, weight of minus 35. Right, give me the weight of particle, the total weight of particle, which passes through 35 number mesh screen. So can you give it from this differential analysis directly by looking into the graph without doing any alteration? So I want the undersize of mesh number 35.
So sir, can you repeat the question again? Like
yes,
mesh
yes. So I am giving you a mixture. Suppose the mixture have some weight. Let's take the weight to be capital M. I want the weight of particle which passes through mesh number 35 from the mixture of particle. The total weight of the mixture is capital M, and I want the mixture of, I want the weight of particle, total weight of particle that passes through mesh number 35.
So it passes through means it can go even below 35, right?
It can go even below. Every particle that passes through 35.
Sir, we can like multiply n with the sum of all the xi's that are below 35.
Not multiply, we have to add up all the weights from the bottom, right?
Yes, so like first of all xi's should be added and then it will be multiplied.
Sum up all the mass fractions below 35 and then multiply it with the total mass.
Yes. So can you understand like where I'm going right now? Because if my requirement is something like that, which is the more general requirement, then we need to go for different type of analysis, and that is known as cumulative analysis. Cumulative analysis is nothing but adding up all the differential fractions, right? But there is a standard of doing this cumulative analysis. That is what we will do now. So second one is cumulative analysis, and the purpose I told you already. So this is if that is the requirement, then the cumulative analysis will directly give you this number. I'll show you one example also. So cumulative analysis, how we do that? Its analysis is obtained from the differential analysis by adding up cumulatively. Now, how we will add it? Should we add from the top or from the bottom?
So can you repeat the question?
So see the first line written here, that a cumulative analysis is obtained from a differential analysis by adding cumulatively. Adding cumulatively means we are adding up all the mass fractions that is written on a specific screen. Cumulatively means one by one. Now, should we start from the top or from the bottom?
Sir, from bottom.
Any reason?
Sir, like in the previous example in which we want the mass of the particle, we summed up the mass fractions from the bottom. So in the same way, for analysis, we could start from the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, what you said is right, but that may not be the logic always. It depends on what you want. Sometimes if you add it from the top, that also helps. I'll solve one problem later on. I'll show you that if I draw it from the top, it will help that problem. But
or sir, maybe the case that we are more concerned about undersize only.
No, not always the case. It depends on your system. Sometimes, suppose you wanted to take the example of cosmetic industry. You wanted to remove the fines. All you care about the coarse particle. So there your coarse particle is oversized, and that is something which is of more concern than undersize. It depends on the system. But the thing is, the general standard, there has to be a standard. You cannot make it different for different problem. The general standard is we have to start from bottom. What you say? That is the general standard. So if you want something else, we have to just take 1 minus that fraction. That will give you the oversize. Later on, I'll solve one problem. This thing would be clear. But before going into the cumulative analysis, I forgot to mention one thing. For the differential analysis, why I have this thing as blank? I just forgot to mention.
So all the particles pass through. So this.
No, how will you find out the average size of particle written on that specific screen?
So the topmost one, right?
Yeah, the topmost one. It
So
has
the mass
to be.
fraction
It has to be that one before that divided by 2. So before that you don't know, right? So there can be one case when you say which you said that all the particles passes through the first screen. So this is the case here. And if this one has some number, right, what would be that number?
4.699 by 2.
Yes, right. Okay, so this thing is clear. Let's focus on back to our cumulative analysis. So the way we define this cumulative analysis, the individual differential increment starting with the starting that is retained on the pan. Pan is the bottom one. The bottom sheave or the bottom screen is called pan. It's not a screen, it's a solid base. Right, it's a ball kind of stuff. It has a solid base. Starting with the pan and tabulating or plotting the cumulative sums against the mesh dimensions of the detaining screen. Don't get confused once we see the example, things would be clear. So what is the cumulative analysis? It's basically a plot between this chi and dpi, where dpi is the average particle size. Dpi you are already familiar of. So you have already seen this. What is dpi? Retained on a screen I, and the quantity psi is the, see, look this line, last line carefully. The quantity psi is the mass fraction of the sample that consists of particles smaller than dpi. This smaller than dpi is something you always should be in your mind. It has to be smaller than dpi. So when I am giving you a cumulative mass fraction number of a specific screen, that means that number signifies that that mass fraction of particle has passes through that specific screen. Example will make the more things more clear. Let's take this same example, which we have seen for the differential analysis. So this mesh number, screen opening, mass fraction, these three you will get from the experiment. You have seen the vibrating screen experiment also. So this in vibrating screen, this thing is not there. So if you see the next laboratory experiment, this is only the third year batch can see. I'll show one experiment to the entire theory course classes also, where I had done some screen analysis, sheave analysis of a specific sample. Then you will get the idea what you will get from the experiment. So from the experiment, you will get this mesh number because you have this stack of screens. So screens, you know, as you know the screens, so you know the mesh number also. This you will get. The corresponding opening you will get from the table that will be supplied by the manufacturer of the screen. The mass fraction retained on the specific screen, this is what you will get from the experiment. After performing the experiment, once you disassemble out all the screens, you will find some particle retained on that specific screen. It is those mass fraction, this one basically something like this. So these masses, right? If you weigh all these masses and divided it by total weight, then you will get the mass fraction retained on a specific screen. Okay, so these three things you will get from the experiment. Now this what we have already seen in the differential analysis. Let's not discuss this. This one, the cumulative fraction smaller than dpi. Again, let's take the example of mesh 200. The corresponding psi value I am getting here as 0.075. So how I get this number?
Sir, like we summed the all the like xi's below it, so we have only one, that is 0.0075. So
okay, right, correct, fine. Take the next one. First one is pretty easy to understand. So 0.0106. So how we got this number?
0.0075 plus 0.0031.
Yes, right. Absolutely right. So how we are doing it? We are basically adding up the stuff which is below that point. See, when I'm talking about this mesh, that is this screen which has a mesh number of 150, this one, the 151. Let's take this example. So what I will consider, I'll consider the mass fraction which is below 150, right? So if I draw a line here, see what is below 150, these two. We have to add these two stuff. Now if we add this to 0.0031, 0.0075, we will get this number. This number we will get. And this is how we are constructing the cumulative fraction. Now how we represent it? We represent it by plotting it in a, mostly we do it in a semi-log graph paper, because in x-axis we have the range is only 0 to 1, whereas in y-axis the range is only 0 to 1, whereas the x-axis your particle diameter may vary to a large extent. So that's why we use the log scale in the x-axis, and we use the general scale, normal scale in the y-axis. So if we plot it, we will get something like this. Now suppose I ask you to find out the mass fraction of the mixture which has a size smaller than 1.75 millimeter. So can you directly do it using this graph? Suppose Suppose I wanted to find, let's listen to the question again. I wanted to find out the mass fraction of particle from the mixture of particle whose size is smaller than 1.75 millimeter. So can I directly do it from this graph?
Sir, we can add 0.0041 plus 0.0031.
Yeah,
and
that is
0.
from the table. Suppose this table is not given, you only have this graph. See, from the table, obviously from the table you can directly say, but I am giving you an intermediate number. The intermediate number is 1.75, which is not there exactly here in the table. You have to interpolate. But if you interpolate, that would be wrong. Why, I will tell you. Instead of interpolating, you should use this graph directly. Now from the graph, how will you get it? It's more easy. It's more easy. Just think. You wanted to know the fraction of particle? Yeah.
Sir, like on x-axis, we will take the point 0.173, and then we will draw a line on parallel to y-axis in the point of intersection. From the point of intersection of the line and the curve, we will draw a line parallel to x-axis, and wherever it meets the y-axis, that would be the cumulative fraction of mass.
Right. So we will take a point at 1.75, right? Because that is my point of concern.
Yes, sir.
So we will take a point somewhere here. Obviously, it will fall somewhere here, which is 1.75, and we will draw a vertical line which will intersect on this graph, and then we will take the corresponding y value. Right. Suppose this one 1.75. You take the corresponding value. Now, what is the answer here?
0.4.
0.4. I wanted to know the particles which are smaller than 1.75 millimeter in the mixture. See how easily I can get it if I have the analysis. And I can also you can also tell me, okay, of 60% of the particle has a size which is bigger than 1.75 millimeter. You can directly tell from this analysis. Now, why we are using this graph? Why not the table? Why we are not interpolating from the table? We know these 2 points. So 1.75 will lie somewhere here. So why we are not interpolating from the table?
So because it might not be linear, the interpolation.
Yes, absolutely right. It might not be linear, because when we are interpolating, we take these 2 points and make a linear regression between these 2 points. We add it using a straight line and take the average, but that may not be true. Right. So if you see the nature of the curve, if the point that is of your concern, if that section is somewhat linear, then you will get a more accurate result. But if that section is not linear, then your result will deviate a lot from the ideality. So it's better always to use the entire graph for finding out the point. Fine, I hope the cumulative analysis is more or less clear. Okay, so there is another plot which generally used by plotting the frequency. It's the dx dd versus d. So looking at this graph, you can comment something on the nature of the mixture. It's not a quantification, it's a qualitative, to get a qualitative idea of the mixture. The most frequently occurring size is shown by the maxima of this graph. Obviously, we are plotting against the frequency, that means the dx dd versus d. So the maxima would be the most frequently occurring size, right? It is observed that for naturally occurring material, so if you take a naturally occurring material, means if you take some mixture of particle which you obtain by digging a hole in nature, I mean in your earth, you just dig a hole, big hole, and take out some mud and then try to do a size analysis. You will get a single peak if you try to plot something like this. But for mixture of particles, when you have different kind of materials involved, there may be multiple peaks also. And suppose you break the particle using some crusher, grinder, or something like that. So then also you will see multiple peaks. So there one peak corresponds to the material of the particle, and another peak might be because of the nature of the instrument that is used to break the particle. This is not very intuitive. Suppose you have two mixtures which is made of same material, but if you draw this frequency graph, you get two peaks, right? But the peaks are not same. So in one graph you get something like this, and in one graph you get something like this. So this second peak may be because of the way you had break this particle. So for this you might have used some different crusher, and for this you might have used some different crusher. But the two peaks corresponds that you had used some instrument to break the particle. It's not naturally break particle that you got from the nature. Else you will get only one peak. This is not very relevant, or not we will use for solving problems, or not we will something which you use for the industry, for in industry. But what about the particle size which is very small, which you cannot separate using the sheaves? The particle that is even smaller than 40 microns. So how will you get the distribution? So for that, it's observed that few scientists came up with some distribution laws, and it was observed that if the particle size is below that, most of the particle follows this kind of law. One famous law is Gaudian-Schumann size distribution law. So what this law says? This law says that it's basically a linear logarithmic relation. So it was observed that if you have a particle which is smaller than 40 microns, and the distribution will follow something like this: ln x is equal to m ln d average plus ln b. So how he got and come into this conclusion? He took different mixture of particle and did a statistical analysis, and it was observed that most of the particle follows this distribution with a specific range, for a specific range, and for a specific type of materials. It's not universally true, but it is one of the famous one which is observed to be true for most of the materials. Here D average is the average size of, I mean, when the increment is 2 to the power 1 by 4, not root 2. Although the screen doesn't matter because you cannot do the distribution below 0.4 micron, but for below 0.4 microns you can directly use this law, and this is how it looks when you draw for particles which is very small. The straight line portion is the using this law, this one. So some sieving errors. This you can help me. The possibility for a particle to pass through an aperture depends on the following factor. Just name one or two that comes into your mind, which can cause sieving errors. The sieving process is more or less clear to you now. We have discussed this multiple times, but where you can get errors in this entire sieving.
Deformation in the aperture, like there might be some deformation due to which the sum of the holes might increase in size.
Okay, let's go by point by first point. You are saying that the aperture size may deform because of some wear and tear, using long time or something like that. That can be one reason. Okay. Other one, someone was saying, any other points? So that can be one reason. Okay. Any other points? Okay, there can be multiple reasons. Just think carefully and think wisely. You can figure out lot of reasons why it can go wrong.
So the particles can stick to the mesh, like due to
Yes.
some moisture or something
Yeah,
like.
the particle can stick to the screen. Even moisture also, forget about moisture. If you have a particle size which is exactly same as the aperture opening size, it will not pass through the screen and it will not be on the top of screen. It will go and stuck in the screen itself. So that can be one reason. So that those kind of particle is called near mesh particle. If you have particle which are near mesh particle, so their size is same as the aperture size of the screen. So it will stuck to the screen and it will reduce the efficiency and will cause error. Any other? See, when I'll point out those points, it would be very obvious to you. The particle size distribution of the powder, when the particle is very small, obviously it will give to error. The number of particle on the sheave. Okay, this is not sheaving error. This is basically the possibility of a particle to pass through an aperture depends on this following factor. So what is the factor which will determine whether the particle will pass through a specific aperture or not? Obviously, the size distribution of the powder or the mixture that we are talking about, the number of particle in the sheaves. So what if the number of particle is too high? Suppose you have a mixture, the mixture is too heavy, like you have a few kgs of mixture and the actual distribution is such that more than 60% should pass through that specific screen and all the particles are written on that specific screen and you are shaking it. So what can it create some error? Like when the particle load is huge.
Deformation of the mesh itself if the load
Yeah.
is too much.
The deformation of the mesh is if it is too huge. If it's not that huge that it is causing deformation, but think on the possibilities, right? You are shaking the
So
entire.
the
Yes,
larger particles will block the smaller ones.
Yeah, but you are.
Sir, if particles get stuck on the edge of the sieve.
Yeah, all those things are correct, but you are shaking the entire instrument, right? So you are, as you are shaking the entire instrument, there is a chance that the particle, which is smaller than the opening size of the screen, will hit the base of the screen and will go through. That's a possibility. It's a stochastic process. But if you keep on increasing the mass, the chances of that specific particle to reach to the base of the screen will reduce, obviously. Right. When you have small mass, the chances of the particle hitting to the screen is relatively high because you are shaking the entire assembly. Whereas if you keep on increasing the mass, the chances of hitting the particle hit to that specific screen will reduce. Do you agree with me? Just try to visualize, you will understand what I'm saying. Is it clear? Like suppose you have this screen, right? You have huge particles and some small particles. So these particles are supposed to pass through this screen. Now you suppose this particle is here and it has to pass through all these things and it has to reach here. And you are completely shaking the entire assembly. So there can be a case where the particle may not get a chance to reach to the bottom.
Yes, sir.
Yes, and this probability will increase if you keep on increasing the load.
Sir, by the load, it will be simply the number of particles, right?
Yes, by the load, I am talking about simply the number of particles.
Yes, sir. Yes.
That is what is written, number of particles on the sheet. The physical property of the particle like surface area, specific gravity, this is one of the reason. If it is very sticky or if it is very heavy, so if it is some particles are it's a mixture of particles. So you can have different particles made of different materials. So heavy particle can directly go and stick on the bottom of the screen. The method of shaking the sheaves, obviously, if the method of shaking the sheave is not proper, it's not uniformly shake, it might cause error. The dimension at the size of shape of the particle. This is absolutely true. And this is, if you have particle which is something like this type of particle creates a lot of problem. If it hits the screen horizontally, it will not pass through the screen. Well, if it hits directly like this, the chances are high that it will go through. So if you have this type of dimension of the particle or this type of shape of the particle, the chances of getting error is high. Geometry of the shaving surface, opening area, and the total area. Obviously, this I've given you one example: 25%, 40%. What is the percentage opening that you have on the screen? So those kind of things also create some error. So sheave distribution given by the sieving operation also depends on some variables. The duration of sieving, that is one factor. Obviously, this what I discussed. If you keep on doing the sieving process for infinite time, all the particle obviously theoretically will get a chance to hit the bottom, and those which are smaller, they will pass through. So this sieving time also a factor. Presence of near mesh particle, this is what I was talking about. So if you have a particle which is exactly like this, so it will neither pass nor will be retained on the screen. It will block the screen locally and it will be stuck to the screen. So if you have particles in the mixture, which is most of the particles are near mesh, it will block the screen. So variation of the sieve aperture, that is one factor. Errors of observation in the experiment. Obviously, this is the experimental error. Errors of sampling. So when you are taking out the particles from the sieve and doing all the sampling, there can be an error here also. Effect of deferred equipments and operation. So this is which is not directly sieving, the associated equipment which is related to sieving, there also those instrument can lead to an error. Suppose where you are weighing the mass of each fraction of the particle retained on a specific screen. So there that machine can create error. So all these errors can create problem in the entire sieving process. So that's more or less the brief idea of the screen apertures, sieving, and all this stuff. So next class I'll start with the screen effectiveness. So this is the interesting part. So try to be there in the class, in the next class, at least next couple of class. Otherwise, it would be difficult for you to understand on your own. So I'll start with the screen effectiveness in the next class. Okay, so if you have any question, you can stay. Otherwise, you can leave. Not a problem.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.